Hello, everybody. I'm Shane.
And I'm Ken.
And welcome to GemTalk.
Well, welcome to episode 12.
Woo!
And the fourth and final week of the Summer of Steven.
Woo!
And the end of season 3.
Woo!
And the beginning of season 4. All of that in 1 week.
Yes, all of the build-up, and we've finally reached the finish, the finale.
Yeah. I was surprised to find out that Super Watermelon Island was the first episode of season 3, which means we've been doing these podcasts for
A full
all
season.
of season 3.
Yay!
Yes. So, just really quick about the season in general, to me it feels like the whole season was about Steven developing his powers.
Yeah, a lot about him developing his powers and slowly segueing into him becoming a more defined and certain member of the Crystal Gems.
Yeah, we see him no longer struggling with his powers, unless they're brand new for him that day. See Steven floats. But really mastering them and beginning to use them. He uses fusion with Connie. We finally get to see them fight with sword and shield.
He throws like several shields at once at certain points. He has the spike bubble now.
Yep. And he has a lot of control over the bubble, as we'll discuss later. He can extend it and everything else.
And like throw extensions off of it.
Yeah, and he's now really an established member of the team, not just the child that's been protected and reared by the team, but a true member.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that was highlighted in Steven versus Amethyst.
Yeah, that was the problem with the transition.
Yeah.
For us in America, since they decided not to have an episode last Friday, we got 6 episodes to talk about today.
Oh my god, so much information.
Starting with Beta Part 1.
Yes. And when I first saw this, I was a bit confused. I wasn't entirely sure when I first saw the title exactly what they were going to go for. But as it turns out, it ends up being about the kindergartens and how Jasper is different from Amethyst.
Yes, because she, being Jasper, comes from the beta kindergarten. That's just so much worse than the primary, which would be Alpha kindergarten in Facet 5.
But when the episode starts, I'm just so happy to see that Lapis and Peridot have finally been working together.
Oh, yes, and they repaired the barn by taking the silo and sticking it in the hole.
And filling it with meat morps.
Yes, meat morps. And they like to watch Camp Pining Hearts in a portion of the van, which is somehow
outside of the...
On the second level of the... I don't know.
Metal powers.
I don't know what they did. Yeah, metal powers. That's probably what it is. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But the fact is that they're both up there. They're both watching Camp Pining Hearts, and...
I mean, this episode really just sort of highlights how well they would make as a couple, in my opinion, relaxing and doing what they want to do with their lives.
Right, and even though Peridot is really excitable and Lapis is very calm and collected, they both enjoy the show.
Yeah.
And at first I was wondering whether Lapis really enjoyed the show or if she's just humoring
playing
Peridot.
Along, yeah.
But she does say later on that she does enjoy the show. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I also noticed that this episode seems to pick up right where Steven versus Amethyst left off.
Yeah.
It's almost as though the Bismuth episode didn't really happen, except that Amethyst does have her upgraded whip with the little
barbs on
balls
it.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this, up until the end of Season 3, was really very direct. They kind of hit their stride at the climax of Season 3 and just kept going for it. And one of the interesting things that occurred, almost sort of disconnected, but when they're showing off the Meep Morps, the television keeps saying, "Oh, I feel trapped. I just feel trapped." And Steven kind of alludes to, "Oh, is this supposed to be a reference to when you were... trapped in the mirror for 1,000 years?" And Lapis says, "No, I just like the show. It's kind of a comedic moment there."
Yeah, but Lapis hasn't just been trapped in the mirror. She's been trapped in a fusion. She's been imprisoned by Homeworld. She's been nothing but imprisoned.
Yeah, and I was trying to decipher whether Percy, the character in Camp Pining Hearts, is supposed to be directly related to any of the characters in Steven Universe, and he wears the yellow diamond, camp sigil. which would lead me to believe that it might actually be Jasper.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but it wouldn't surprise me. It's just like that one episode where Steven relates each of the characters to a crying breakfast friend. Which, by the way, you never hear anything more about that show. I mean, maybe Steven's, like...
grown out of it or something. Yeah. They haven't had time for casual cartoons.
Yeah. I love how Peridot describes art as music with things.
Yes.
Which is a neat callback to when she learned about music for the first time. And so that's her first creative experience, and now she's relating it to music.
Yeah, and how Amethyst just doesn't seem to appreciate it or understand it. Really sort of, I think, is poking fun at people who don't appreciate art and go to museums, and they're like, oh, I don't get it. Or I could make that with, like, a single crayon or paintbrush or something.
Yeah, anybody can paint a canvas blue.
Yeah. But the point is that you didn't, and someone else did. And whatever they
had the gall to put it out there.
Yeah. So I do appreciate that sort of commentary.
I do think it's funny how Lapis's tendency to not give a darn is not so much an aspect of her, like, being hurt or defensive as it felt before. It's just part of her personality.
Yeah.
Because Peridot's like, why don't you fly us in? And she's just like,
no. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I think that Lapis is tired of doing things for other people and receiving a direct command from somebody. She's just not going to accept it.
Yeah, and later in Back to the Moon Part 3,
when they ask
Amethyst says, do you guys want to be prisoners too? Lapis is like, nope. No.
But, so Steven explains that Amethyst, her bad mood in this episode is due to the fact that she's been feeling inferior to Jasper. And when Peridot hears about that, she doesn't understand, or she doesn't believe it, because from her technological understanding of gems,
where everything's absolute and objective.
Yeah. Amethyst came from a better kindergarten and is therefore better than Jasper is.
Right. And I love watching Peridot try to cheer Amethyst up. I think every time Peridot is in a scene, we get to see her further proving her redemption.
Yeah. I think that it's cute that she tries to be funny or tries to cheer Amethyst up, but I don't think she realizes that the joke that she makes is sort of at Amethyst's expense, but she still says, you're welcome for the joke.
Oh, yeah.
As if the fact that the joke itself exists is enough of, like, a good thing, despite the fact that it's at Amethyst's expense.
Yeah, her naivete is very
fresh,
endearing.
Strong, yeah.
You know? So they all go out to the Beta Kindergarten, and Peridot's pointing out, oh, this is bad. They're not even evenly spaced. And it occurred to me that her job was a kindergartner.
Yeah,
this is her job.
Yeah, she's actually one of the people who reviews and takes care of and monitors, I'm assuming, gem birth.
Yeah. I mean, if you were a mechanic or a person who builds cars, you're looking at other cars being like, oh man, that wasn't built right. Or if you're a writer looking at other people's writings going, oh, this is terrible.
Mistakes.
You know, they're not using this, or they're not using that phrasing right, or whatever.
General lack of the Oxford comma.
A little bit of professional criticism.
Yes.
But the way that Peridot is, there's right and there's wrong.
Yeah.
And
well, the way that Homeworld is.
Yeah. That aspect of Peridot, though, I think is just part of her character. You're not going to get rid of that with her.
Yeah, she's going to be very critical and a bit of a perfectionist just because that's who she is as a person.
Another gem type was mentioned really quick. In the Beta Kindergarten, she said, like, look at this carnelian. I looked up carnelian. It is a very deep reddish yellow color, like a deep amber sort of color. I also tried to look up what its like uses were, like mystically or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be something that imbibes courage.
Huh. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not either. But given that it is like reddish yellow, although dark, makes it seem like, yeah, something like that would come from like a sandstone-based kindergarten.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that apparently various types of quartzes can be mined from a single kindergarten.
Yeah. I'm sure the fans of the show are become very aware that quartz is a general term. There's lots of gemstones that are considered quartzes.
Yeah. For example, they say that Jasper and Amethyst are both quartz. So they try to find Jasper's hole because, as Peridot indicates, this place was a rush job. As the war was going on, we can surmise that the diamonds were running short on warriors because the rebellion kept knocking them down. And we've kind of deduced, and one of the rubies sort of realizes it later, that as long as Rose could heal her soldiers, they could stay at par with Homeworld.
This also indicates, since this kindergarten was set up during the war, that Jasper emerged while the war was already going on. She was not there for the start of the war.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a bit of an important point a bit later here.
Mm-hmm. But so they, as they're walking along, they find Jasper's hole. And if it isn't the most perfect, beautiful hole...
Yeah. Oh, man. The jokes went around the internet. Jasper even emerged flexing.
Yes. Just with the arms, like, outstretched and, like, the forearms raised, like, victoriously.
I almost want to see that animated. I just want to see the Rock to be there perfectly, like, fine, except for maybe some little hole in the center where the injector went.
Yeah.
And then, like,
boom!
You know, and according to that one ruby, she immediately defeated, like, 80 crystal gems as soon as she emerged.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So as they're investigating the hole, and Peridot's really trying to cheer Amethyst up.
She's really trying.
But she can't lie. I mean, it's almost like reviewing, again, a piece of work in her own field and realizes, no, this is just perfect.
And Peridot is definitely not one to use the white lie.
Yeah, no. And I think they can all sort of understand just by looking at it and how different it is from all the other weird holes, as Amethyst puts it. And as she's indicating, like, yeah, I'm gonna be the one to beat Jasper, and I'm gonna do it for all the strange, like, gems out there.
All the strange holes out there.
Like this one, and this one.
And this mess. Yeah. Wait a minute.
Which actually turns out to be, as we find out later, one of the cells that Jasper has been keeping corrupted gems in.
Yep. And we get to see more gem beasts, yay.
Yes.
I love the gem beasts, they're great.
And as they see that Jasper is here, Amethyst just cannot contain herself.
Ready to go.
And boom, it cuts off.
Earthlings, part 2. So, this is the rematch. The long-awaited, 4-episode long-awaited rematch.
Long-awaited for Amethyst.
Yeah, between Amethyst and Jasper.
And as it starts, we have a sort of monologue from Jasper.
Yeah.
About how Earth ruins everything. Gems that are corrupted suffer because they're wrong, they're incorrect. Anything that's not perfect, anything that doesn't match the diamond's ideal, that doesn't have a purpose, deserves to be broken or shattered or corrupted or suffering. Anything that is wrong deserves what it gets.
Right, so Jasper's philosophy is very fatalistic. Like, fate brought you to this, so therefore that's your lot in life. Deal with it. Oh, yes. Well.
Which is interesting because Jasper's the one in the end, if she follows her own sort of logic of how life works, who ends up getting corrupted. So is that, in that case, what she deserves?
Yeah, I don't know. But the thing is, she denied Steven's healing. And that was her redemption moment. If she would have allowed Steven to heal her, and I'm pretty sure, having just had the corruption begin, it would have been able to work.
Yeah, probably.
Because Jasper could still remember who she was.
Looked like, yeah.
But no, Steven was rebuffed, and that was it. As far as I'm concerned, at least for quite a while, that's going to be the end of any sort of Jasper redemption.
Yeah, I think we've sort of bypassed that, but not to get too ahead of ourselves. When Amethyst is trying to get the jump on Jasper, and Jasper gets the jump on Amethyst.
I love that classic moment.
Yeah.
You know, you're sneaking up on the bad guy, you think you're sneaking up on him, and all of a sudden, no, I knew you were there the whole time. Who are you kidding?
But Jasper gives us, in her own words, the explanation for the perfection of Gem Society and the Diamond's expectation for their world. And I noticed something.
Oh, yeah?
As she's describing it, and we get this sort of Tetris-esque buildup of the gem sigil.
Symbol, yeah.
A bunch of different colors fused together to make only the white portion of the sigil. So I'm curious if, for example, White Diamond might have control over gems that aren't their primary color regularly, as if that's not an abnormal thing to have happen.
Yeah, I'm starting to lose faith in the similar color concept.
Association.
Because the big surprise at the end of this episode is that Jasper belonged to Pink Diamond.
Yeah.
And there's, like, yellow to pink, not really much of a correlation there.
Well, I mean, if orange is a red and yellow mix, then it may be that she was more on the red/pink side of the spectrum, but ended up being associated with Yellow Diamond in our perspective.
Maybe, but when Steven says Yellow Diamond, that was a natural assumption. I mean, it would be anyway.
Well, she's wearing the sigil, the yellow sigil, so that I think that's the biggest thing, really. Also that several times Jasper has made allusions to going back to Yellow Diamond, to needing to report to Yellow Diamond.
Right. It's been pointed out that all the other gems, when they're referring directly to a diamond, they'll say my diamond, like Peridot does.
Yeah.
Jasper always says Yellow Diamond.
Yeah. But that was just something interesting that I noticed.
Yeah, so this is the first time that a character has explained inside the show about the Order of the Diamonds, as she put it. And it's kind of great to see it finally explained in canon. Universe,
yeah.
You know, a lot's been assumed and so well proven that the fans were like,
kind of
okay,
take it
this
for
is
granted.
what it is. Yeah. Although, she does say the Order of the Diamonds, not the Diamond Authority.
Close enough.
So...
And Jasper also refers to Earth as a ruined planet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if that has anything to do with the way that the diamonds attacked the planet, or if it's because of the cluster. Maybe no more gems can be made on Earth because all of the nutrients are going to the cluster.
Perhaps. It did make me wonder why all the injectors are all deactivated if they could be started up. Although the Crystal Gems thought that Peridot might have been trying to restart the kindergarten at one point.
Yeah.
But they did say if she did that, it would like destroy everything. The planet's fragile as it is. And we've seen the world map, and it is quite damaged compared to the map we're used to.
Yeah.
I also want to point out, when I was rewatching these episodes, I realized that the gems that take on Jasper are the Shorty Squad.
Yes, they are. It's all of the mini kids from...
Yeah, Too Short to Ride.
Yeah. But we finally get to see Amethyst and Jasper fight again, and Amethyst has gotten better, to be fair. She does lay a couple of solid blows on Jasper.
Yeah, I thought that first strike when Jasper was thrown against the wall was like, oh yeah, let's go, let's get this on.
But unfortunately, as we come to learn a little bit from the Rubies later on, Jasper is just... great. She's perfect. She's as good of a warrior as you could probably wish for in an individual gem. Psychological balance disregarded.
Yeah, if you're just looking at size and strength, which seems to be the most important thing that the more militant gems look at, then yeah.
So yes, of course, Amethyst goes all out. She even uses her new barbed whip and that really cool fire spin dash attack that I really hope shows up again in the show.
Purple fire everywhere.
Yes. But no, again...
Jasper was like, whatever.
It just, like, flexes off the damage.
And she's like, you gotta be kidding me!
Yeah.
And then Steven creates a diversion by knocking down one of the injectors. And I love this, because he did this with Steven versus Amethyst, too.
And Steven tries to remind Amethyst, or tries to open her eyes to the fact that just because you're not like her doesn't mean you're wrong. In fact, Jasper's the only one that says that you're wrong. And Steven tries to remind her, like, there are multiple ways to be correct at something. And that's sort of what they have in common, again, going back to Steven versus Amethyst, is that they both don't feel as if they are what they should be, but you can be anything and still be good at it, or still be, perfectly fine.
Right. A very core theme of the whole show. It's the thing that endeared Rose to Earth.
Yeah. And what a perfect time to become something else.
Yeah, right. So when they're having this very heartfelt little discussion, I was watching this, and when Steven held out his hand and she took it, I was like, wait a minute. 2 frames later, boom! And I love the way they did this, because there's the big explosion, like a nuclear bomb went off, right? And then you just have this frame that's just all eyes.
And then the hair falls over.
And then the hair comes down, and you're just like...
what a beautiful day!
Oh, man. That voice is such a perfect blend of the two of them.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I don't know how they do it. I was thrown off by the 3 arms at first, because... yeah, we've seen fusions with multiple arms or multiple eyes and whatnot, and you're used to that. But they're usually paired. You still have that bilateral symmetry. And here we have 1 arm and then 2. And as far as the pudginess, I figured, well, Steven and Amethyst are the 2 pudgiest characters. And so, yeah, you have this somewhat dumpy rounded sort of character. And that's great. But remember that Garnet's fusion is so perfect that the only thing off about it is the 3rd eye.
Yeah.
And that's because they are so perfect for each other. They're so well in sync.
Yeah.
So the fact that Smoky Quartz has 3 arms just indicates how well in sync the two of them are.
It's so close to almost being perfect. And one of the other things is they didn't dance.
Yeah, there has been some debate about this because people have noticed that the dancing portion has become reduced lately. A lot of fusions have been happening off screen, as what happens in the following episode.
Yeah.
But take the rubies. When they fuse into Mega Ruby, they just get in some kind of like cheerleader like stack.
Yeah.
And then they just fuse together. So the dancing might not be required, but I believe they said it helps them get in sync.
Yeah, it might be that, like, for example, gems have a certain wavelength, and you can use that wavelength to represent anything, their personality, their mood, whatever. And the dancing just helps get those wavelengths similar so that they can bind together. But maybe in moments where emotionally the characters are already very similar, the dance is unnecessary. Or in the case that the fusions are of the same gem, like the rubies, that they just are already naturally the same.
Yeah, but when they do fuse later and Know Your Fusion, it's still the same sort of like arm clasp, but then poing, and there's like really no dance there either.
Yeah, and again, it might just have to do with how in sync their emotions are already.
But the big deal with this is Steven confused with gems.
Yes, Steven
finally answered.
Yes, we have the fact that Steven confused with gems, which means we have like what? 9 other characters. We have to wonder what quartzes can be.
And again, there are so many kinds of quartz.
Oh, yeah. I haven't actually gone through and, like, wondered, like, okay, so let's see. We've got, what quartzes are blue so that we can have the lapis and sapphire fusions.
Yeah.
And we find out that Smoky Quartz, who takes a little bit of time to figure out what her name is, despite what Peridot thinks.
It's like, who cares about your name?
You have a fight to win.
Yeah.
But her weapon is a yo-yo, which I think is such a great idea of a way of fusing a whip and a shield.
Oh, yeah. First of all, yo-yos were invented to be weapons.
Yeah. I mean, imagine...
And they were a lot larger than your toy yo-yo that you see now.
Yeah, it'd be similar to almost what Smoky Quartz has. It's like this big disc that you would put on a string and you would throw it out at things and pull it back.
Yeah, so in a way, it's kind of like a sling that you don't lose the bullet.
But... I tend to like characters who are a little on the silly, jokey, sort of goofy side.
Oh boy. She's got jokes.
Yes, and as soon as she shows up and says, hey, I've got plenty of tricks. Ever heard of Sink the Dink? And just smacks Jasper around.
I laughed out loud at
that.
I
know, I couldn't stop. I was rolling. But she does have a bunch of really cool attacks that are similar to using the yo-yo with its intended purpose, like the whole spinning, like she spins like a top at one point.
Yeah.
So.
Using it as a grappling hook works too. You get this idea that fusions just have this preternatural agility, no matter how dumpy they look. Because doesn't she flip kick Jasper at one point? Like, whoa, okay. But I do like the part when Jasper and the Beast are falling down and she's like, ew, and then she lays over the thing, just the same way Amethyst was laying over the hand.
Yeah. So we get a confirmation of one, first of all, in a previous episode, I said I believe that Smoky Quartz could have been Amethyst and Steven fusing.
Yep, I thought that was a good...
So, I nailed that one. Boom. Number 2 is another confirmation of something I suspected, which is as soon as Jasper realizes that she's going to lose, she just runs up to one of the gem beasts and force fuses with it.
Yeah, which I think helps prove the fact that you can force a fusion.
Yeah, so that's confirmed.
Yeah, but forcing a fusion with an unwilling subject, because obviously the beast doesn't want to do it,
is extremely unstable.
Yeah, it's very unstable, but oh man, the Jasper beast.
It's so cool looking.
Man. 8 arms / legs.
And like 3 horns and that big like jaw-ridden smile.
I mean, if the beast reminded you of a behemoth, this should definitely remind you of a behemoth.
Oh yeah, this thing is just nightmare.
So you got this thing that's a huge, monstrous thing, and you don't even know what its full capabilities are. You just know that it's huge.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to matter.
No, because Smoky Quartz just...
has 3 huge fans.
And as she's, winning the fight, the beast tries to leave Jasper. She kind of tries to pull it back in to stop it from getting away. But no, in the end, they fall apart and the beast runs off once it realizes it can.
Yeah, when I watched the episode a second time, the moment when they were up in the air and they defused, I was looking very carefully at Jasper's arm to see if there was any indication of the corruption, and there wasn't. Mm-hmm. Now, that could just be because that was supposed to be a surprise for a bit later, but they did attempt to fuse, kind of half did it, and then separated again. I wondered if that is what gave Jasper the corruption.
Maybe. But Jasper has this really telling line as she comes crashing down to Earth, which is that nobody she ever fuses with wants to stay. I'm kind of curious if there's a previous story prior to Lapis.
Prior to Malachite.
Yeah, where Jasper maybe tried to fuse with the other soldiers in her kindergarten and nobody could.
Yeah, I did put down that line because at that moment when she said that is when I felt the most sorry for her.
Yeah.
Even in spite of everything that she's done, I was like, wow, maybe she's hit the bottom. Maybe she's gone all the way down, hit the bottom, and this is where she can bounce back and actually be redeemed.
Yeah.
If it's going to happen, this would be the moment. And it's funny because Jasper specifically mentions that. Because she says, you only want gems after they're worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Because the crystal gems, honestly, are a bunch of misfits.
Yeah. When you live in a society that only accepts perfection, and anything that even has the slightest flaw in it is immediately ostracized, then yeah, the fear alone of having the smallest imperfection is terrifying.
Yeah, and a big shout out to Peridot, who tries so hard.
She does.
She tries so hard to help. And at first, she's intimidated by Jasper, understandably. But later, when Jasper says, look what you did to her. You took away her limb enhancements and her status and her dignity.
I still have one of those things.
I still have one of those things. I was like, there's Peridot proving herself.
And you can see here that Peridot's basically 100% converted now. Mm-hmm. The fact that she went from trying to sell the Earth out even down to when they thought she was converted to wanting to try to sell the good qualities of Earth to Homeworld. Yeah. So we've kind of gone 180 degrees here.
Yeah. And she tries to explain it to Jasper and get Jasper to understand. She says, like, the Earth sets you free. And then Jasper immediately says, the Earth is a prison.
Yeah.
Two completely differing ideals from the same thing. But it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
If Earth is full of corruption and things that don't fit into the perfect ordered society, then, yeah, it's a prison. It's where things go to be imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
But from Peridot's point of view, it's where she can continue to exist, even though she might have done something wrong, like fail on her mission, or call Yellow Diamond a claw to her face, or,
but
you know.
Something interesting to note is that Jasper said she got out of here because she's better than this place. Was it considered a prison to be a soldier? Like, just being on Earth in and of itself is a prison? Or is it a prison because the cluster's there?
I'm beginning to think maybe Jasper witnessed the corruption event, maybe as she was escaping, and saw the results of it. Or maybe was even hit by it, but was not affected.
And she got off the planet in time because she was too good.
Was better than. Yeah. But the only problem with that theory is that how come this corruption took hold? And the whole time, you know, Steven wants to help her. Everybody's trying to convince her that it's okay, but no, she has nothing to do with it. And her, like, last words, so to speak, about how she'd been fighting against Rose because of what Rose did
to her diamond. And Steven, of course, like we said, thinking like, that it's Yellow Diamond. Yeah.
It's like,
and at that point is when Jasper really loses her mind. Yeah. Because she's just like, what do you mean Yellow Diamond? No, my diamond, your diamond, Pink Diamond. And that's the first time we ever actually get Pink Diamond's name dropped.
Exactly.
So there's that.
Right. So, yes, the pinkish colored diamond is Pink Diamond, not red or anything else like that. Yeah.
And something interesting, a lot of people wonder why Jasper would have gotten so crazy at that point. And one thing that I was thinking about, it's possible that Jasper always sees Steven as Rose.
Right.
Now, in Jasper's mind in that case, it's possible that she just sees the person who killed Pink Diamond. Mm-hmm. And when Jasper's looking at Rose and saying, you killed my diamond, and let's just imagine it's Rose in Steven's place, and Rose says, you mean Yellow Diamond? Jasper is being told by inclination that Rose doesn't even remember who she shattered.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have the consciousness to remember the person she killed. And the diamonds, as we know, to Homeworld are so important, they're revered beyond all else, that to forget that you killed like a high matriarch, a queen in your society.
A quarter of the tetrarchy, basically.
Yeah, just drove Jasper out of her mind.
Yep. And then now we have this huge gem beast.
It's like malformed and corrupted.
And again, we're waiting for a huge battle, and then nope, we finally get Peridot able to use her metal powers.
The payoff of her being goofy that entire episode.
Yeah, and she manages to poof it.
Yes.
So, thanks?
Well, I see that as a payoff for Peridot because even all the way back in Jailbreak, she shows that she doesn't like being with Jasper.
No.
And she even says at one point, I forget which episode, that even being with Jasper felt like a prison. And so the fact that she was the one who was able to poof Jasper in the end, to me, just feels like a long time coming.
Yeah. So a bit of a surprising thing was when Amethyst went to bubble Jasper's gem, and she says, "Come here, sis." And then bubbles the gem and sends it home. It seems like after, like I said before, about 4 or so episodes of Amethyst just being all about, I want to defeat Jasper, I want to defeat Jasper, I want to defeat, and at the end now, there's pity, there's compassion.
Yeah, well, several things on that. One, I think it's really easy to be compassionate and understanding when you won. So she's coming from the higher ground, so to speak, already.
She's also not gloating about it.
No.
Which is not Amethyst. She seems like someone who would gloat sometimes.
Well, yeah, but I think the problem here is that they were fighting. Amethyst thought that she was fighting somebody who was, better than her, that was stronger than her, and she wanted to get the upper hand on somebody who, was better than her, thought that they were better than her. Sort of like an underdog story. But as they're having this fight, the person that she's fighting basically suffers from a severe mental and physical breakdown. And so now instead of feeling triumphant, you kind of just feel like taken aback or concerned or, oh my god, what did I just witness? And Amethyst might be a bit childish, but I don't think she's completely insensitive. So to see that sort of complete snap and breakdown in Jasper made her feel concerned more than happy in the immediate moment. Because we see later that she gloats about beating Jasper.
Yeah, it was a bit of a touching moment, and a recognition that they are both Quartzes, they're both from Earth and everything. So they do have that connection. They are sisterly in that way.
Yeah, and seeing that indeed Jasper's diamond is flat on the back, which apparently was a question.
Yeah, I saw this interesting artistic rendition of Jasper's gem actually being rotated in her head or something like that, which would be interesting if it were true, but that would mean the gem itself would have to be huge. But I don't know. Some of the gems on those corrupted things are really big. So they come back to the barn, and everybody's happy. And, oh no, the rubies are back. All in their little water bubbles.
Yes, which a little sooner than I thought, but
yeah.
I mean, I guess it doesn't take too long to explore the entire Milky Way when you have faster than light travel.
Right. So here we have the ending of a season that feels like it could have ended 2 times. That could have been the end right there. Be like, yay, we popped Jasper, great. Yeah. Now, the major antagonist on the planet now is gone.
So
there are no primary antagonists.
5 minor antagonists.
Yeah. So we go back to the moon, part 3. So we have... I put him in a timeout. I love it.
Yes, it's adorable how Lapis just sort of nonchalantly says, like, they showed up, they were being jerks, so I just put them in bubbles. All right. I mean, they are sort of like children.
They very much are. And Steven gives them all nicknames. Leggy, Army, Navy, Eyeball, and Doc.
Yes, which is probably an allusion to Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Probably. But also noting that Doc is the one whose gem is on the chest. If we were following the pattern, it would have to be like chesty or something like that.
Let's not go there.
So we get an episode full of Amethyst being Jasper.
Yes.
Which I thought was really strange considering what just happened.
Yeah, well, Amethyst thinking on her feet and needing to find, some way to make Jasper appear. I mean, that's probably the easiest way to do it, as opposed to, like, trying to explain that they just kidnapped her.
Yeah, but, of course, Pearl's like, this is never going to work.
And of course it does, because the rubies are so dumb.
But not only that, the rubies hero worship Jasper.
Yes.
Which makes it even easier to deceive them here.
Yeah. I had a little interesting note about that because I think it's due to the fact that in the middle of because wars are made up of battles. And I imagine that when Jasper broke out of the earth, they were losing the war. But Jasper, as they say, broke out, defeated 80 crystal gems immediately, probably was lauded as a war hero, who, when all we could make were these dumpy sort of wrong warrior gems in a hurry, Jasper, the perfect warrior, broke free and saved us in our time of need.
Right, so they see Jasper as kind of a savior character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the line, I almost dissipated my form.
Yes.
I thought that was great.
But yeah, so we have Amethyst saying, oh, okay, well, we can't go back to Homeworld because I have to watch the prisoners. Okay, well, then we'll just take them to the moon to make a report. Well, we have to bring everybody along. And then she makes, like you said before, a nod to Lapis and Peridot and asks if they want to come. And no, absolutely not.
It's like they're having like a play adventure. Hey, you want to come be prisoners too?
No. Once again, leaving Lapidot alone.
Mm-hmm. And that's enough Lapidot for 3 episodes.
Not until they fuse. But I think Amethyst gets to be sort of in her element when she's as Jasper, because she gets to kind of be the big boss in the room, and that makes her feel good.
Yeah, it's just really weird how it contrasts between everything that happened up to that point. I mean, you're basically masquerading as the person you just defeated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say killed because she wasn't shattered, but you just defeated her, and now you're going around as her. Just kind of weird. But I think going back to that bit of compassion at the end of the previous episode, maybe that's something. I think we talked before about how gems must be able to recover from emotional trauma faster, or else the fact that they live so long will just drive them insane.
Yeah. There's so many cute little interactions on the way to the moon between the rubies and...
With the Santa Claus moment.
Yeah, and Amethyst calls them the crystal germs, and off camera one of them says, yeah, I bet they got those germs from Earth.
Oh, the part where Amethyst kicks the dirt is like, don't plant it, and they all run over and start stomping on the ground. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my god, these guys.
And then we have Pearl, of course, as all of the crystal gems are trying to pretend like they just got defeated, and Pearl's super overacting.
And then Garnet like, oh no, we got caught by Jasper. I'm so cross about it. Oh, okay.
But importantly, one of the things that I noticed is that the 3 triangle-shaped sigil that's on Jasper's ship when they're on the mother hand ship, that same sigil is on the floor in the Ruby ship. So that's interesting to note. 2 ships coming from the same era.
Well, now we can tell what's an Era 1 thing and an Era 2 thing. Yeah, and now that we know they're called Era 1 and Era 2.
Well, that's assuming that the shattering of Pink Diamond marks the era. That still hasn't been completely...
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure. Maybe not the moment that she got shattered, but the end of that Crystal Gem War probably marks that point. But they go back to the moon base, and we know there's those humongous portraits of the diamonds in the moon base. And we got a good look at Yellow Diamond the first time, and I think even a good look at White Diamond.
Yeah. We got a good look at pretty much all of them, honestly, except for Pink Diamond.
But no, now we get to see Pink Diamond. Yay. And apparently Eyeball has been a Ruby since Era 1. She was there when the whole Rose Pink Diamond thing happened. She says
later in Bubble that she's been fighting for 1,000 years, so she must have been there, close to the beginning of the war.
But we get the big drop that, first of all, Earth was Pink Diamond's colony. And it's an Era 1 base, obviously. And then Rose shattered Pink Diamond.
And Steven does not want to believe that for a second.
I mean, I never even considered that myself. I figured if they had captured any of the diamonds, they would be bubbled.
Yeah.
Or something.
Well, a lot of people are coming off of the theory that Rose was Pink Diamond.
Right.
Now to hear that Rose killed Pink Diamond is just, completely opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah. But what I noted a lot was the reactions. Obviously, Steven was shocked, and initial shock and denial. But Pearl was shuddering.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking a lot about what that reaction means. I came up with all kinds of theories in my head. But you pointed out to me that her reaction is very much the same as what it was in Rose's scabbard.
Yeah, when she first finds out that Rose may have been hiding a bunch of things from her, her mental stability, her emotional core just gets completely shaken, and almost like she just can't stand the fact that Rose would have kept very severe secrets from her.
Now, if Rose had kept secret from Pearl the fact that she had shattered Pink Diamond, that would be a similar blow. I also thought that people are still trying to figure out who Pearl belonged to.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we go on the theory that Pearl was Pink Diamond's Pearl, perhaps Pearl betrayed Pink Diamond in some way to allow Rose to even get access to her, to shatter her.
Yeah.
And Pearl's, designed to be loyal servants would have been still shaken by that act of betrayal.
It's possible. I still have my own theory about Pearl, which is that she never had an owner.
Yeah.
Sort of like she was made and nobody ever claimed her or picked her up or whatever. And that's why she's always clothed in all 4 colors, because she never got differentiated.
Right. Or it could be that that's just her natural reaction to the concept of shattering.
Yeah.
Because gems that can live effectively forever as long as they don't get shattered or corrupted, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So, the shattering of a diamond is also likely something that had never happened before in all of gem history.
Yeah, I'm assuming it hasn't. If Era 1 was pre-Pink Diamond shattering and Era 2 is post-Pink Diamond shattering, then, we're not on Era 3 for a reason.
Yeah, that was a huge, huge thing, and Steven almost blows the whole operation by reacting so vehemently, in denial of that news.
Yeah.
But before much can happen, they get interrupted by one of the rubies, realizing that the computer had been destroyed,
which
and the communicator was gone.
Episode on the moon, yeah.
Yeah. So then Amethyst, again as Jasper, says, well, why don't you go home and write the report for me? And they hero worship Jasper so much. They're like,
okay.
Oh, I'd be so honored to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And we know by this point, Amethyst is having a hard time holding her form.
Yeah. And when it seems like that may have paid off and Amethyst's plan was going to work and the rubies are about to blast off, one of them comes back and says, hey, do you need a ride back to Earth? And Amethyst is not Jasper anymore, despite what she says.
I was wondering about that myself, because they got to the moon the first time by Lion, and Lion's not with them this time.
Yeah.
So, if the ruby ship just left,
I'm sure they could have somehow gotten a hold of Lion or something, or...
Yeah. But apparently Steven can survive for a long time in space in a bubble, so maybe doing a literal jump to Earth wouldn't be out of the question.
Who knows? Yeah.
Gem magic and all that. But still, the rubies are like, we've been deceived again. And they ain't having it this time, so big ruby again, yay. And Steven, being resourceful, is like, why don't you take this fight outside, and opens the hatch. Funny, Amethyst opened the hatch the first time, and you saw, all the air getting blown out into space.
Yeah.
Then she closes, yep, we're on the moon. That was one of those things.
Yeah, there's a hint left behind that you can link it to this episode.
Yeah.
And, of course, just a guest appearance of my favorite fusion, Sardonyx, shows up. And using, again, one of my favorite weapons, that hammer made out of fists.
Unfortunately, it causes them to defuse, because that's how one of them ends up pulling Steven out. And I'm watching this show the day it aired, and Steven gets pulled out into space with the ruby, and you see the crystal gems on the moon base, and he's going away from them, and they're like, fade to black. I was like, no!
Yeah.
You can't do that to me!
It's a good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But on a quick note, because after they released the episode, Rebecca Sugar and the Crewniverse released the image of all 4 of those caricatures of the diamonds.
Diamonds, yeah.
And a lot of things to note about that. First of all, I think most people know by now the little spheres that are around them are the colonies they probably controlled.
Yeah, I saw that theory, and I saw that Pink Diamond only has one with the little moon.
Yeah. A lot of people believe that the reason why White Diamond's hands are at the center of her waist, there's a sphere there, is that represents Homeworld, since she's
White Diamond might be the
cardinal matriarch.
Yeah. It would make sense, since when we think of diamonds, in the real world, we think of clear white diamonds, not blue and yellow, although they do come in all those colors.
Yeah, but one of my personal theories, in response to some of the theories I've seen out there, a lot of people want to believe that the reason why Pink Diamond had so few domains, or maybe vice versa, chicken or egg problem, is that she's the youngest diamond, or the newest diamond, that she was made last, and therefore hasn't accrued as many colonies, or can't be trusted with as many. I would posit, however, that perhaps Pink Diamond's actually one of the strongest because, not to get too deep into the art history, but each one of these characters has a halo around their heads. Many of them, the halo only just transcends the outline of their head in the sketch or the etching, whatever. But the circle, the halo that surrounds Pink Diamond's head, surrounds almost her entire upper torso. And in a lot of historical art, if you go back and look, that sort of imagery usually denotes how important or how powerful
how
or
divine.
how a figure is. And so, again, it might just be a stab in the dark going off of, art history.
Right.
But it's possible that maybe Pink Diamond was the most important or the strongest in some way.
It could be. If that's the case, then why was she suddenly inspired or inclined to make a colony of her own? That would be the next question.
Yeah.
Because I still have this far-flung concept that that Homeworld is in some way at war with some other entity that we're not even aware of canonically right now.
Possibly.
And I'm waiting for the Sneeple
to
show up.
But that, yes, takes us into Bubbled.
Yeah, now, this is the trailer episode. The epilogue, or what's the word you use?
Denouement.
There you go.
Yes, the falling action, declension. Of the story, yeah.
Because not a whole lot happens in this episode. You get a lot of feeling lost in space.
Yes, there are a bunch of references to 2001 in this episode. The opening, where you've got this sort of revolution that constantly happens, is a reference to the running scene. Towards the end, where Steven's drifting off into space alone, is a reference to the giant space baby at the very end of the movie that's in a bubble. So that's one of the things I noticed. It's a very atmospheric episode.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the sight of Earth just spiraling further and further away from you is personally terrifying.
Yeah, it is sort of creepy. Yeah.
Because there is no stopping you.
Yeah.
Until you run into something, and you're probably not going to like that. But anyway, there was just this aura of danger this entire time. And even though I know in the back of my mind, Steven's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
You know that. But still, just, how's he gonna get out of this?
Yeah, how could he possibly get out of being flung into space?
And for some reason, it never enters my mind until I see it, that the gems are still on the moon base, and they have the ruby ship.
Yeah.
Derp.
It's one of those things that's like out of sight, out of mind, until it's there, and you're like, oh, obviously this is the solution.
But, and Steven sees the other rubies just flying off, and I feel so bad for them. I know they're antagonists, but they're silly and goofy, and I really didn't want to see anything really bad happen to them, but there they are. Woo, bye-bye. Yeah.
So, are we ever going to see them again? Who knows? But seems like no. But Steven ends up getting smack dab into the middle of this sort of odd couple episode with Eyeball. Because Eyeball's frustrated that she lost her entire platoon and she's going to, die out in space. Steven's pretty much in the same position. And then we're somewhat revealed that Eyeball personally wanted to just see Rose Quartz because she had been fighting crystal gems for 1,000 years, and how could she possibly still be there? And I've wasted my entire existence.
And another gem that believed that there were no crystal gems left on the planet. So when the corruption thing happened, the Diamonds must have believed they got everybody with that, and they just left the planet to its own devices.
Yeah.
Or until the cluster blows it up. And everybody on Homeworld believed that it was finished. Or the Diamonds got their troops off, minus the Centibeetles group, and did the corruption thing, and then maybe they noticed that Rose saved a couple, but they don't want anybody else on Homeworld to know about their failure, so they didn't tell them.
Yeah,
because they already know they lied about Peridot's powers.
Yeah, because anybody who is imperfect or does something wrong should be ousted completely. And if the Diamonds, with their big ultimate attack,
they can't possibly make a mistake.
And if they missed somebody, then they're going against their own concept.
Besides, if it got out on Homeworld that a Rose Quartz's shield could protect them from that, everything falls apart.
Yeah, well, see, I have an interesting question. Do multiple Rose Quartzes exist? My gut instinct is yes. Because several Amethysts exist, several Jaspers exist.
And the rubies said in the previous episode, one of Pink Diamond's own Quartz soldiers.
Yes, but the ruby seems really surprised to hear that the rumors that Rose Quartz could heal gems was true. After Steven obviously heals Eyeball's gem from the stray asteroid that smashes it. So does that mean nobody knew it was true that a rose quartz could heal gems, or that healing gems was even possible?
It could also be a common thing for the quartzes not to reveal that gems could have additional powers. Or maybe Jasper's right, and maybe there is some corrupting influence on Earth. Maybe even, to tie to something in the previous episode, it has to do with the sun.
Yeah.
You know?
Does that mean that Earth gives gems new powers?
It could be. And if that's the case, then the Earth itself could corrupt the gems. Could the gems themselves become corrupted after being on Earth for a certain length of time? Maybe a long length of time.
I mean, I wouldn't generally consider getting new beneficial powers a corruption. I mean, I know in the scientific sense it is.
Yeah, it's a mutation.
Yeah. But maybe that's also how Peridot has been getting her powers.
Yeah. But Homeworld, or at least the Homeworld philosophy, is that things don't change. The gems don't change. They emerge knowing exactly what it's supposed to do and doing it, and that's it. But Rose says that on Earth, life is change.
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why she ended up revolting, aside from just the fact that, Earth is so great and wonderful. Maybe she discovered Earth was giving her new powers and was like, hey, check out this new cool stuff I can do. We can't destroy this place. Yeah, and Pink Diamond's like, nope, sorry, you're corrupted. You're showing signs of imperfection, and maybe Pink Diamond was going to shatter Rose for that.
I mean, Jasper even says, to shape yourself
outside of your purpose.
Yeah, I'm sure the concept of Steven would be totally repugnant to the Homeworld. But there are some funny things that happen. Since a gem's specific gravity changes, depending on what other object they're on, you have this thing where the bubble's rotating and Eyeball's just rotating around it.
Yeah, and she can just walk along it.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of like Super Mario Galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have the little planetoids that you still can just walk around even though the planetoid itself is the size of you.
Yeah, and when her gem gets cracked, I love the part where she turns into this like microscopic version of herself. It's so adorable.
Yeah. And we get another sort of pseudo confirmed bit here when Eyeball finds out that Steven actually is Rose Quartz. She gets filled with these images of becoming a war hero, destroying the rogue, that killed the Pink Diamond.
Delusions of grandeur.
Yes, and pulls out her weapon, which is a dagger. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so no, does not have a gauntlet. And we can probably surmise that the rest of the rubies wouldn't have had a gauntlet either. These weapons that the gems have are more than likely specialized due to being a crystal gem.
Maybe Garnet to Ruby can produce a dagger, but uses the gauntlets anyway.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's apparent that Bismuth made the weapons, made the gauntlet, made the spear, etc.
I mean, I still have questions on that because Bismuth said that she made all of the physical weapons that the gems used.
Right.
And again, I'm not sure whether the weapons are made of the same light energy as their bodies because they can just pull them out of anywhere. And there's that difference between Rose's sword and the sort of weapons that are hanging in the forge as opposed to the weapons that they're using. Or I don't know, there's still a big...
She probably made all the weapons that are in that storage area we saw in Lion 2.
Because Bismuth herself says it's not every quartz that can make a whip when Amethyst generates her whip. So Bismuth hasn't seen that whip before.
Right.
So I'm assuming that the gems can just generate weapons of their own accord.
But that would be strange. Like, okay, so Bismuth tosses Pearl, like, horns that she attaches to the spear. Now it's a trident. Okay.
Which, by the way, that apparently seems to disappear. She doesn't have the trident when she's, like, shooting the animal in the kindergarten.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Even now, even after Garnet more or less confirms that Rose shattered Pink Diamond and why she shattered Pink Diamond, there's a lot of fan base that doesn't want to believe it still, or wants to believe it was somehow consensual.
Or faked, or anything like that. I'm still very much of the belief that Rose Quartz may not have shattered Pink Diamond. I have two personal theories. One is that it was staged, and everybody kind of saw it and believed it, including the crystal gems themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And Rose just sort of went with it for some reason, maybe to inspire her own image as a war hero. Or diamonds are huge, enormous, multiple times bigger than any Quartz soldier we've seen so far. The concept of a single Quartz soldier shattering a diamond seems impossible when they could just put their palm down and crush them immediately.
True. Bismuth did say that Rose's sword was capable of cutting through the physical form of any gem, but not destroy the gem.
Here's something interesting. What is something that Homeworld doesn't know about? Or at least knows very little about? Cross-gem fusion. What if everybody thought they saw Rose Quartz destroy Pink Diamond, but it was actually the fusion of all of the crystal gems?
Perhaps. The temple fusion, as we've been calling it.
Yes. Because I don't think Rose Quartz, as powerful as she is, admittedly, could have taken down a diamond all on her own.
Yeah, I can't believe it was on her own, which is part of the reason why my brain came up with this Pearl betrayal concept.
Maybe, but again, in my opinion, this was probably some big drawn-out battle, some big protracted, because everybody saw it happen. So it must have been something center stage, or big enough to have not been out of the eyesight.
Yeah, and something that we still don't know is exactly when, during the war, this occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Did it happen right at the beginning? Was it the thing that instigated the war? Or did it happen at some point at the midpoint, or whatever? So, which brings the question, when the events in The Answer took place, had Pink Diamond been shattered at that point?
It's still, I mean, according to if it's the temple fusion that did it, then no, that would have been impossible. Pink Diamond must have still been around, right? Because they just got Garnet at that point.
But if Pink Diamond was still around, what was Blue Diamond doing there?
True. And you know what I just thought of? Amethyst isn't gotten until much later. So
yeah, they don't find her until the war's all over.
Yeah, so I guess that's not likely.
Now, it could be it was a fusion of crystal gems that existed at the time.
Mm.
So that temple is a fusion of multiple gems, just maybe not the gems that we know.
Oh, yeah, maybe there's another Amethyst in the party or something.
Yeah. So Ruby wants the gem. Like, the gem is like the war trophy. If I have the gem, I know that
it's Rose Quartz and I can bring it home.
Rose Quartz.
Yeah.
Steven wonders what would happen to him if his gem was removed. Mm-hmm. Oh, does he?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't know. It's never happened to him.
Yeah, but again, I've seen theories.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that little drop in the bucket is intended to get people thinking as if they haven't been already.
Well, yeah.
But,
and we see a couple of things with the bubble. He can extend it to snag somebody else and bring them into the bubble, which I thought was interesting. And I noticed at the end when the bubble shatters, Eyeball tumbles off in her own direction, and Steven reforms the bubble. He's so weak. It almost reminds me of in Warp Tour when he gets into the area in between warp streams and he almost dies there. He goes into the bubble and he's in like this fetal position like you mentioned earlier, and the bubble gets smaller and smaller, and it's like, so he's dying at this point. Like, he doesn't have the energy to keep the bubble as large as it was before and everything.
Yeah, I also just kind of interpreted that as him feeling vulnerable and curling up, and the bubble's just collapsing.
He could have also been emotionally distraught because he wasn't able to reason with that ruby.
And kind of basically just killed it.
Yeah.
In a protracted sort of way.
Yeah. And his feelings about his mom are complicated, even more so now.
Just a really emotionally trying time.
Yeah. And then the ruby ship shows up.
Yes, and of course we get this very touching scene as Steven is pulled back into the ship, and all the gems can barely hold back their tears because they probably thought he was going to be gone forever, just dead out in space, and they finally, by some miracle, found him, and big tearful reunion.
I did like the idea that it was Steven more or less sitting in the captain's chair on that ship.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Maybe more foreshadowing of him, becoming the leader of the crystal gems.
Yeah. If Rose is supposed to be the leader, as she was, then that is the position that Steven should be ascending to.
Yeah. And so we get this nice little end cap to the episode where Steven asks, did Mom really do this? And Garnet, who's probably, again, the most informed and believable character in the group, says she did what she had to. She didn't always do what was best for her, but she always did what was best for Earth.
Yeah, and it reminded me of what Greg said in The Return when he said to Steven, there's no such thing as a good war. That both sides had to do things that are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what war is.
Yeah.
And no, she wouldn't just run around shattering gems, no. But she had to shatter Pink Diamond, or else none of the crystal gems could be what they are. It could be that the shattering occurred because the war was going on, and like maybe Rose found out they were going to do their corruption song or whatever, and felt that if she could shatter one of the diamonds, then maybe they wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. It wouldn't be strong enough or something.
Maybe the song would have shattered everything,
mm-hmm.
but because they were one short, it just corrupted them instead.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's the end of season 3. Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely very quickly released. But I think it's been the best season so far.
Oh, yeah. When you look at it as a whole, it really stands up as a really contiguous story.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job of keeping the story on track.
Yeah, and with that being said, let's move right into Kindergarten Kid.
This is probably my least favorite episode of the week.
When I saw the title spoiled months ago, I assumed it was going to have something to do with Amethyst.
Yeah.
Because at the time, Amethyst was the only person we knew that came from a kindergarten, and the only kindergarten we know of is the one in Facet 5.
Yeah.
So now we know there's a second kindergarten, and all this other stuff has happened, and so no, we're doing more corrupted gem hunts. But you know what? That is what the crystal gems do. That's what they were doing in season 1, and here they are getting rid of all those gems.
Yeah, so, sorry, this is a Peridot heavy episode, and it was just disappointing to me. The crystal gems, they failed to be able to capture this one really flighty, as Garnet puts it, corrupted gem. Peridot says, I can't believe you guys could let such a dumb thing get one over on you. And Garnet's like, fine, you do it. And Peridot is more than happy to comply because she's the one that poofed Jasper after all.
Yeah.
And Steven wants to stay behind, not to help Peridot specifically, but to make sure that nothing happens to the corrupted gem.
Right. So, the first thing I have written down is that this is a light episode intended to kick off a new season.
Yeah.
I also wrote down that the main thing that happens in this episode is that Peridot learns compassion.
Yeah. I think the main thing that we can take away from this episode is that the Crewniverse has watched Looney Tunes. This entire episode, if you're not aware, is obviously a parody of the Wile E. Coyote / Roadrunner cartoons. From the memes I've seen on Tumblr already,
oh yeah,
it's been very heavily parodied.
I do notice that in each of the gags that they do try to do one little twist on it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, almost every one of them ending with boulders falling on Peridot is pretty true to form.
But I did like that on the third parody plan, or was that the fourth one? I think the third one didn't even get off the ground, but they're falling down the cliff and you get the stereotypical poof of smoke, but that wasn't just the, like, Looney Tunes puff of smoke. That was actually the gem poofing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. Not to mention in Peridot and corrupted gem-shaped holes.
Yes. And it's also pretty interesting to note that Steven remarks how hard it must be to poof Peridot after she gets, like, boulders poured on her several times, falls off cliffs, has a boulder roll over her, but her original poofing just had her being, like, squeezed by Garnet.
Yeah.
So maybe that was just an extremely rough hug on Garnet's behalf.
Garnet hugs. Serious things.
And
also at the end, oh, by the way, everybody else is still here. We never left. We never went anywhere. Okay.
Yeah. And I do have to admit, I think the best thing that came out of this episode was the amount of just parodied images and goofy stuff that people have made on the internet. The scene of Peridot thinking like a monster and, like, getting down that hunched over position and sticking her tongue out.
Yeah.
I've seen everything parodying that, from her being photoshopped into the team skull from Pokemon image.
Really?
Yeah. Because their symbol is them, like, holding their arms out like this.
Oh, no.
To somebody making a video of whenever Peridot sticks her tongue out to it making the Yoshi noise.
No!
Yes.
Well, my favorite thing I saw was they did the thing where they showed the image of the gem, and they had, like, corrupted gem, and then, like, the, like, Latin name, really funny, and then Peridot, and then the name was Claudus Maximus. So I was like, I love it. I love it. All of the gags were pretty well predictable.
Yeah, I think that was my problem, is that they were just a little too good. They were a little too predictable. Mm-hmm. When I saw the Perry plan starting up, I was like, okay, this is exactly how it's going to fail. And, almost piece by piece, I was accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, I realized that when they did the one where they were up on the cliff, and they're going to push the boulder over. And then, of course, the monster's up there, too. Scares them off the cliff. Then pushes the boulder. Okay.
But they do manage... Well, she does manage to poof the Roadrunner, if you will. And, yes, like you said, the crystal gems are there. They've been watching. And Peridot accidentally bubbles the gem. Because she's kind of just like saying, this thing was a good match for me. And poof, bubble. So I think that the bubbling procedure, since, as Garnet says, the bubbles provide a protective stasis field for the gem so it doesn't suffer, being able to create a bubble must require a level of sympathy for the gem.
Yes, which I think calls right back to when they poofed Jasper and Amethyst bubbled her. Because it seems like when you poof a gem, you have two options. You can either bubble it or you can shatter it.
Yeah. And the fact that Peridot can make bubbles now indicates two things. One, that she's showing a higher level of sympathy.
More crystal gem.
Yeah. And the other is that she considers Earth her home now. At one point she says, this place will never feel like home. That's many episodes ago.
Yeah.
But now she's making bubbles and sending them back to the barn.
Yeah. And I was trying to decide whether Lapis noticed the bubble or not.
I believe she does. I think she notices it in a sort of like, what's that? Sort of blasé way that Lapis just sort of has about her. Yeah. And Lapis is also reading a hair, designer magazine.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Which I think is funny because there was a sort of big deal about the hair design on Lapis and Peridot a while back.
How it's changed since their first, they showed up. But yeah, it was a filler episode if ever there was one. We learned a little bit about bubbling, about Peridot's character, but it's
mostly a joke episode, for laughs.
So then we go to Know Your Fusion, because, the biggest thing that happens since Earthlings is Smoky Quartz.
Yes.
And they got back to the barn, and all the stuff with the rubies happened. They never had a chance to even tell them what happened. So let's fix it right here.
Yes, and compared to the previous episode, which I was surprised that I didn't like, this episode I absolutely adore. I think this is probably one of my favorite episodes in a really long time.
Yeah, it's funny because this episode always felt like it was a little bit off for me. It was a little too contrived because I have a hard time believing that Sardonyx would be that bad at understanding how another fusion feels.
Well, I think, again, that because when the episode starts, Amethyst and Steven obviously want to show off their new ability. Especially since they're the newbies of the group. They want to show, hey, we can fuse together. Look at how great we are. Mm-hmm. And they do so, and Garnet and Pearl are just completely, overwhelmed.
Oh, I know. I couldn't wait for them to show Garnet and Pearl. And, oh, man. Garnet's face was just like it was when Stevani showed up.
Yes.
She was just beside herself. And they start showing the yo-yo tricks in the house.
Yes.
And smashing everything. And Pearl's freaking out, because that's what Pearl does. And Garnet's just too busy, a little help here, and then poof, there's Sardonyx.
Yes.
Who, by the way, is as big as the house.
Yes, she's so amazing. But we do learn a couple of interesting things here. One, fusions have their own room.
Yes. Now we gotta wonder what everybody's room looks like, including Ruby and Sapphire's separate
rooms. Mm-hmm. And another thing is that fusions are expected to have powers that sort of double up on each individual contributor's abilities.
Yeah, it's that being greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what this episode's about. Sardonyx is so excited to meet Smoky Quartz that she wants to know, what powers do you have that make you above and beyond?
But all that Smoky Quartz is good at is the yo-yo.
Yeah.
She's really good with it.
Mm-hmm.
But Sardonyx is it's all the yo-yo. It's great. I loved it.
Lived it, loved it.
Well, by the way, when we first saw Sardonyx way back, she's just like a a talk show host, like a late night talk show host. That is her thing. That's great. And so, of course, her room is a stage for one of these talk show hosts, complete with the false skyline in the back and the couch and the cup that says, I heart EC. I stared at that for about 2 minutes before I was like, Empire City.
Yes.
Right.
And the fact she even makes her own fans. Yeah, like, that's a little weird, but...
Well, I mean, maybe. Every Gem's room is just like Rose's room. It's formed in whatever... fashion they like.
Yeah. So we go down this sort of Price is Right-esque style mini games to try to determine what makes Smoky Quartz special. Mm-hmm. And just okay, so when they show the clips from previous episodes on the background monitors and it says clips provided courtesy of Cartoon Network, I just lost it.
Yeah, because in the previous episode they got really close to breaking the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. Really close. And I was like, okay, well, they didn't break the fourth wall. That's not something that they usually do in this show.
Yeah.
The fourth wall is now in tatters after this show.
Punched right through it and kept going.
Oh, man. All of the references to old shows and the clips from old shows and all of the other fusions, including Sugalite, which they distinctly made a reference to.
Yeah, she's not in this episode. Do we still have to pay her? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well. Yeah. And the carnival-esque strongman thing with the mallet, I don't know what you call that, but it is interesting to note that the third time that Smoky Quartz hits that, she gets it up to Garnet's symbol.
Yeah.
So does that mean that she's as strong as Garnet?
I don't know. Maybe.
The lowest one was Pearl.
Yeah.
And I swear it's the same image on the Pearl points.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But we do have just so many good scenes. Also, there's in the Hit the Bird segment, Stephen Jr. is actually on the little mountain cutout.
I noticed.
So that's good.
There's a small reference to Strong in the
Real Way.
And now that's the second time they've done that. They did that in Gem Hunt too, with a reference to like you do it for her.
Yeah. So when Smoky Quartz continues to fail all of these little tests, including one part where Sardonyx tosses like the mallet off screen or something, and we get a Wilhelm scream, which
every time she tossed anything off the screen that happened. She tossed the microphone.
Every time she tosses something off the screen, there's a different sound effect. There's like cat screaming. There's like somebody like falling down or something. But the Wilhelm scream is a canned sound effect that is kind of like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
It's a very specific sound that when you hear it, you're like, okay, that's the Wilhelm scream. But anyway, so she keeps downplaying the yo-yo, and she says, I want to see what makes you special, and Smoky Quartz says, you and me both, indicating that she doesn't even know what about her is new or special.
She already said she'd only existed for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
When they had to fight Jasper, that's not enough time to really get to know your fusion.
Yes. So it might be two different ways of looking at this. Either A, it's okay not to know everything about yourself right away, that you'll continue to grow and learn more things about yourself as time goes on. Or if we keep with the sort of analogy that fusions are relationships, that it's okay not to know everything about a relationship right away, that you'll learn and grow together as a couple.
Yeah, I want to say that third test with the fire breath and the target, that really wasn't very fair. I mean, you're trying to get Smoky Quartz to do something that a 4-gem fusion does, and I'm like, no.
I mean, I think at that point they were just comparing her to all the other fusions.
So she starts jokingly putting herself down. Mm-hmm. Well, 0 plus 0 makes 0.
Which, to be fair, is something that Steven and Amethyst both kind of share. They both felt, like, lowly of themselves.
Right. And, like, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I'm, like, a super wrong. And, like, then they finally get it. And they finally realize, oh, man, they were trying to show
Surprise
us something special.
And,
and we just took over the whole thing. And at that point, I was like, oh, no. That's exactly what Sadie's mom did to her.
Yeah.
Oh, look, you're going to do something special? Okay, let's do it 120%. Woo!
Yep, and it pretty much ended the same way.
Yeah.
Almost, completely terribly. To the point where Sardonyx has a, breakdown over it.
Literally.
Fun fact, if you pause that scene and go frame by frame, Ruby and Sapphire do the not really separated bit where they split apart and then fuse back into Garnet.
I was wondering that, and I couldn't see it, but I didn't do the frame by frame.
Yeah.
I didn't do the play by play.
But yeah, if you go frame by frame, you do see that they're, again, holding hands as two units that pull back into Garnet before she appears back on screen.
Garnet was so excited that maybe if she saw in her future vision that this was a possible thing, maybe she felt it was so improbable that she kind of dismissed it.
Yeah.
And because totally surprised, totally excited about it and everything. I just want to note that. And at the end when she says, let's get the play-by-play, that's actually a bit of a callback to the previous episode when she tells Pearl that they don't need the play-by-play. It was great. The title Know Your Fusion, you knew that there was fusions were going to be involved in some way, and they like to hold fusions for special things. And
this episode was just chock full of them.
Yeah. So maybe it's like getting that thing that's like too sweet to me.
Maybe. I was just more than happy to see Sardonyx in her element.
I was happy to see Smoky Quartz again so soon.
Yeah, and we do find out that the yo-yo can be used as a grappling hook as well.
That's right. I was wondering, when Smoky Quartz is in the middle of rescuing everybody because the room starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
There's one point where she jumps up in the air and she has the yo-yo spinning, and she has it spinning right on top of her head.
Yeah, she gets in this like almost yoga pose.
That's what I thought. I was like, this has got to be some kind of a yoga pose or a reference to something in like Hinduism or something like that.
I'm not sure
that
personally.
I don't understand, but that's what it looks like.
Yeah, and it shoots off and manages to save them.
Like, why would it stop on that for like several frames?
Yeah,
you know?
It's probably an illusion that I'm not personally picking up on. But they do end up saving Pearl and Garnet.
And everybody. They all come shooting out of the door, which now looks like a curtain.
Yeah, and they end up having the opportunity to actually explain what happened in their own way. So it was a happy ending in the end.
So.
Almost died, happy ending.
Therefore, comedy?
Yeah, comedy.
Yeah. That is the fourth and final week of the Steven Nuke.
Yes, the summer explosion.
We got, after such a long hiatus, we got a whole season crammed into 3 months.
A veritable ocean in a desert.
And now it seems like for the foreseeable future, they're going to go back to
weeklies,
Thursday night episodes, which I think is good. I think that if they can keep on that and not go on any more hiatuses, we'll be good.
Yes, my editing hours will very much appreciate that.
Yeah. Here's hoping that season 4 will be just as good, if not better than season 3.
I'm hoping to hear a lot about Pink Diamond.
Any quick predictions or thoughts about what we might get into?
I think we're going to see more about Pink Diamond. I think we're going to get a lot about Rose's involvement in Homeworld before the Revolution. And I think the season finale of season 4, if I had to make a guess, would probably be the big reveal as to how / exactly why Pink Diamond was shattered by Rose, or however it happened. I can imagine season 4 closing with that being like the big climactic end.
Right. Do you think Homeworld's going to directly interfere with Earth in this season?
Yes, I think that since Jasper hasn't come back, since the Rubies haven't come back, since Lapis and Peridot haven't come back, Yellow Diamond's probably witnessing at this point that anyone she sends to Earth doesn't come back. And one of two things. Either A, she's afraid they're joining the Crystal Gems and that she's basically just feeding Earth soldiers. Or B, that Rose's army has repopulated by itself or what have you and has grown so strong that Homeworld can't stand up to it now. And when the cluster does not arrive on schedule, all of these things combined is going to mean bad news for Homeworld, and someone's going to have to step in to fix it.
I think it would be amazing if they end season 4 on a bit of a cliffhanger, which would be Yellow Diamond herself showing up at Earth.
Oh my god, that would not be ignorable. You could not notice that giraffe of a character.
I know. There's going to be a lot more with space. I mean, there's an episode title, and they're really good at being vague with their episode titles, but there's like Astro Boy Zoltan, which sounds like a
Astro Boy reference.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's a show.
Yeah.
Not that they're going to go actually into space.
I don't think so. I mean, it may be, they may tell Steven, hey, we have to go to space, and he'll be like, oh, like one of my TV shows or whatever, and he gets to live this sort of pseudo-fantasy of what it would be
as
like.
he tends to do.
Yeah.
I hope we get to see more of Lapis and Peridot, getting further brought into the group, maybe,
and further brought into a fusion,
and becoming more of the group proper.
Yeah.
Because right now they're kind of like the sideshow.
Yeah.
And they can't just be there and not play a major role at some point. With so many characters, so many fusions that we don't know what they are, what they look like or anything. I mean, now that Steven can fuse with gems, now...
Yeah, the limits have been exploded.
I've seen some really great artwork of what a Steven-based rainbow quartz would look like.
Oh my god.
I think it looks pretty cool. It looked pretty neat. I'd believe it.
The problem is that Steven's hair is so goofy, it immediately just brings to mind, like, all the gems having big poofy hair. And while that's not terrible, it just, imagine an afro and everything.
Well, I appreciated the fact that Smoky Quartz had Amethyst style hair, but Steven's color.
Yeah.
That was probably a good thing.
Blend,
They may have tried the afro look, and it was just not happening. I mean, Stevani doesn't really look like that either.
No.
So
mostly as Connie's
We
hair.
have seen some clips. There is another clip of Stevani fighting in like a teaser thing that they showed. Also something with Sapphire. That's all I can remember right now.
Yeah, Sapphire like looking at these magical blue spirals in the sky or something.
Yeah.
Lots to look forward to.
We get to see Garnet split up again.
Yeah, or it might be a past episode, like
or
way
past
into the
episode.
past.
Yeah. So yeah, excited. A lot more to look forward to. And it's great because we still have a lot of questions. There's so many unanswered questions that it can keep you interested. I gotta hand it to them for their pacing.
Yeah,
and their storytelling skill.
Very well done. But if you have any further questions, comments, if there's anything that you'd like to have us talk about, if there's anything here that we haven't talked about yet that you'd like to point out to us, we always encourage that people reach out to us. We have received a few messages and emails in the past that we've responded to. And we're always eager to hear more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we can be found on pretty much any social media site, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter. We have an email that is GemTalkPodcast, all one word, at gmail.com. And whatever your social media site of preference is, just type in GemTalk, and we are more than likely to be one of the first hits.
And so that'll do it for episode 12.
That will. And I suppose that now we have to wait until Thursday to get any more. It's going to feel weird.
Yeah, there's going to be 80% less Steven in my life.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait until Thursday until that happens.
Yep.
For now, this is Shane and Ken signing off. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.